Hello everyone, welcome back to Channel News Hougang. I'm Samuel Tay, your host for today. In a short while, we will be joined by our prestige Dr. Felix Woon from National Aviation Academy, who will be talking to us and giving us spills about his development, his latest paper plane which the world has never seen before. So without further ado, let's call in and check in with Dr. Felix. Hello? Yes, hello?
Okay, thank you. Hello, I'm Dr. Felix Woon. Thank you for inviting me onto this show. And on behalf of NAA, we'd like to tell everyone we are so proud of our development of this first ever paper plane model in the world. Okay, so before I demonstrate to you how the product works, I think it's very important to give our audience a little bit of background. Okay, so I'll be explaining a little bit about the flight principle fundamentals. Okay, come. So let's first talk about what stability is. Stability is the tendency of an aircraft to return to its steady state of flight without any help from the pilot, after being disturbed by an external force. So, a good aircraft should have the following qualities: adequate stability to maintain a uniform flight condition. Next, the ability to recover from various disturbing influences. And lastly, sufficient stability to minimize the workload of the pilot. However, this should not limit an aircraft's design for its true intended role or function. So now we know that there are three different axes. First, the longitudinal axis of the aircraft runs from the nose to the tail end, followed by the lateral axis that runs from wingtip to wingtip, and lastly, the vertical axis that runs through the top of the aircraft to the bottom. When we talk about longitudinal stability, it is the motion about the lateral axis, which is also known as pitching. So similarly for lateral stability, it is talking about motion about the longitudinal axis, or also known as rolling. And lastly, directional stability is about the vertical axis with the motion known as yawing. When we talk about stability, there are two different categories that we can talk about. First is the static stability, followed by the dynamic stability. So for all our subsequent examples, we will be talking about an aircraft's longitudinal stability. An aircraft is in a state of equilibrium when the sum of all forces and moments is zero. The type of static stability an aircraft possesses is defined by its initial tendency after a force is introduced. So positive static stability exists if an aircraft is disturbed from equilibrium and has a tendency to return to equilibrium. Neutral static stability exists if an aircraft has neither the tendency to return or continue in the displacement direction. And lastly, negative static stability exists if an aircraft has a tendency to continue in the direction of disturbance. While static stability is concerned with the initial tendency of an aircraft to return to its original state, dynamic stability is defined by the aircraft's ability to return to equilibrium over a period of time. Positive dynamic stability is the tendency of an aircraft to return to its original attitude after a number of oscillations with a decreasing amplitude trend until it settles. Neutral dynamic stability is when the aircraft continues to oscillate without settling down. And lastly, negative dynamic stability is when the aircraft continues to oscillate with an increasing amplitude trend over a period of time. Let's look at the test flight of the first model. The first model flew an average distance of about 1.9 meters. It has a tendency to have a nose-down attitude, meaning that it does not have a positive longitudinal stability after being launched. It also showed poor lateral stability as it completely rolled over before crash landing. This flat wing design also lacked in glide performance. Now let's look at the test flight for the second model. This model uses a dihedral wing design which in theory will provide more lateral stability. The end of the wings are also folded up to act as fins for directional stabilizers. Model 2 flew an average of 9 meters, much further and smoother glide than the first model. It also flew in a relatively straight path as well. Next, there is a pitch up moment after being launched, showcasing positive longitudinal stability. And lastly, this model barely rolled and did not have a spiral divergence like the first model. Now with the data collected, we can find the max lift to drag ratio that each aircraft generates by using this formula. Tangent data equals to vertical distance over horizontal distance, which is equals to 1 over L over D max. For the first model, it is launched at around 1.7 meters and covered a ground distance of about 1.9 meters. So we can find the LD ratio to be 1.12, which is not very good. For the second model, it is launched at the same height of 1.7 meters and covered a ground distance of about 9 meters on average. Its LD ratio is about 5.29. So we can see that the second model has a higher LD ratio, and this means that it is more efficient at generating lift for the amount of drag it produces. So this is desirable as it allows for greater range and longer endurance.
Okay, so to sum everything up, let's talk about what we have learned so far. So we can see how important it is to understand an aircraft's stability, as stability will ultimately affect an aircraft's performance. So Model 1 has a low LD ratio as it is not as positively stable as Model 2. And having a high LD ratio would mean that more lift is being produced for the amount of drag generated. We also learned about how we can improve stability by changing and altering the design of the paper plane models for improved performance, be it changing the wing design or adding features such as fins. And lastly, I'm Dr. Felix Woon from National Aviation Academy. And thank you once again, Channel News Hougang.